Crazy Mill told me to divorce my husband. Because she showed up at our home unannounced. And saw her poor baby cooking by himself. While I was attending my mother's funeral out of state. 2 weeks ago, my mother unfortunately passed away from a sudden heart attack. And I had to go back home to be there for my dad and help arrange her funeral. It was very difficult for us. Especially since I hadn't seen her for the past couple of months. Since my family lives in a different state. So I had decided to stay with my dad after the funeral for a couple of days. And I had told my husband about it as well, and he was obviously fine with it. So after the funeral, he and his parents flew back home. Since he couldn't stay back with me as he had work. And for the last couple of days, my husband has been living on his own. And he's a grown man, so he can handle it. But 4 days ago, my mother-in-law decided to visit him. Which is not surprising because she does that quite often. But she actually saw him cooking for the first time. And she completely lost her mind. According to her, her poor baby should never be anywhere near the kitchen. Because she thinks it's a dangerous place. And doesn't believe that he is equipped for it. To be fair to her, she has never seen her son cook before. Because I've never let him. And since I'm not here, he's been cooking for himself occasionally. The only reason I don't let him cook is because he's not very good at it. If I'm being frank, we have been together for 5 years and married for 2. And throughout our relationship, ever since we moved in together, I've been the one who has been doing all the cooking. And he handles all the other chores. It's a fair trade-off, and we are both fine with it. Since I actually enjoy cooking. And it's a far more preferable alternative than having to have the food cooked by him. Because even though he follows all the recipes and stuff, it still doesn't turn out well. And you know, some people just don't have the knack for it. It's not a male-female thing with us. It's more about who can do it better, and that's who actually does it. Like I'm terrible with electronics and stuff, so he handles it for the most part. And as a married couple, I think it's cute because we complete each other. Anyway, you guys get it, but I don't think that my mother-in-law does. Especially given how she reacted when she found out that my husband had been cooking for himself in my absence. Apparently, when she was visiting him, and he opened the door wearing an apron. She immediately started acting like the world as she knew it had come to an end. It was a gross overreaction, if I'm being honest. Because come on, it's insane in this day and age. She thinks that women should arrange for all the food that their husband consumes. And what is even crazier is that she decided to call me afterwards. And straight up told me that I needed to divorce my husband. Because I was obviously not a good wife to him. If he had been cooking for himself. My mother-in-law has always been a bit crazy and orthodox. She has very strange views on things. And we have never really gotten along. But I love my husband, and he loves his family. So I have learned to put up with her. I haven't changed my ways or anything for her. And because her son loves me unconditionally, she doesn't say anything to me either. In the beginning of our relationship itself, we had come to a place of mutual respect, where I did not question her beliefs and opinions. And she did not question my behavior and decisions and stuff. But this was the first incident where she reached out to me directly. And told me that she did not approve of this. And wanted me to come back and apologize to my husband. Or else she would like me to divorce him. Because she couldn't stand the fact that her poor baby was having to cook for himself. Just because I wanted to spend time with my family. I thought it was psychotic of her to say something like that. But I wasn't surprised that this was her take on the situation. It was really insensitive. Because my mother had just recently passed away. And I was still grieving her. So of course, I wanted to be there for my father. Besides, even if my mother hadn't passed away, it was my call whether I wanted to spend time with my family or not. And if my husband was okay with it, I didn't think I needed to consult with her as well. So we ended up getting into a fight. And I told her that her son is not a baby. He's a grown man, and he can handle living on his own. If she thinks that he shouldn't be cooking for himself, I would gladly let her take over the cooking duties. And make sure that her poor baby is fed in my absence. But unless she's willing to do that, then she should just keep her mouth shut. She started arguing against that. saying that since her son is married now, it's my duty to take care of him and make sure that he's doing well. And as his mother, she's obviously going to be looking out for him. And she doesn't think that I'm good enough for him. Words were exchanged, and the conversation got quite heated after a while. But I don't want to waste my energy speaking for somebody who I knew was never going to see eye to eye with me. So I just hung up after a while and blocked her. And I tried to cool off, but it was too difficult. Because of how insanely stupid and insensitive my mother-in-law had been while speaking to me. I tried to call my husband to talk to him. But he couldn't respond at the time because he was napping. And he's quite a heavy sleeper. So I ended up calling my father-in-law to tell him what had happened. And basically just keep his wife in check. Because he is the only person she always listens to. I don't know if it's because of her beliefs regarding how women should be subservient to their husbands, or if she actually respects him for who he is. But regardless of the reason, anytime her husband tells her not to say certain things in front of us, or do certain things, she doesn't do it. He's a pretty reasonable guy. And honestly, he's the biggest part of the reason why my husband and I have still maintained touch with his family. Because regardless of how my mother-in-law acts, he is still a good person. I called him, and I told him everything. And he reacted exactly how I had expected him to. He told me that he would look into it. Because he knew exactly how his wife could be about things like this. He told me that I didn't have to pay any attention to her or what she said. And I knew that. But it's just the fact that she had made me seem like a terrible wife. Simply because of something like this. And that had really gotten under my skin. Ever since I had been introduced to my husband's family, I had tried my best to be respectful of my mother-in-law. And so far, even she had succeeded in trying to keep her opinions out of our relationship. And respect the fact that her son loves me. This was the first time that a confrontation like this was happening. But I wanted this to be the last time as well. And I knew that speaking to my father-in-law would be the only way to ensure that. But I didn't know that he would go out of his way to give her a taste of her own medicine. Because ever since I made that phone call, my father-in-law has been treating her very differently. In the sense that he has been making her do all the household chores. Has made her delete her social media. And basically just treating her the way she believes that other women should be treated in a marriage. I learned about it from my husband, who called me later on that day, and told me that after my phone call, his father had confronted his mother about whatever she had said to me. And she had refused to even act like she was sorry about it. And said that I was actually a terrible wife. Because her son was having to cook for himself. My father-in-law had tried really hard to explain that it wasn't a big deal. But she refused and kept saying that I needed to leave her son alone. So he could find somebody better, who is more worthy of a relationship with him. Eventually, he just lost it. And started telling his wife that now she had to play by her own rules. And be the ideal wife according to her. All these ancient traditions that she wanted to follow. And that basically meant that she had to delete her social media. Because her husband did not want her socializing with anybody and everybody. She could use the telephone to contact her friends and stay in touch with them. But she was not allowed to spend more than an hour on the phone with them. That was going to be a huge problem for her. Because her favorite hobby itself is gossiping and judging everyone else on the phone. With her friends for hours. But she wouldn't even get enough time to worry about it. Because my father-in-law had decided that since she thinks that a woman should be completely subservient to her husband and do everything for him, she should be living by the same rules as well. And he had told her to start doing all the household chores. And by all of them, he meant literally all of them. From the laundry to the cleaning to the cooking and everything. He had even suspended the services of the housekeeper that they had for a couple of days. So that his wife would get to know exactly how her life would have been. If her husband had the same opinions that she did. On one hand, I think it's completely fair that she's been treated like this. Because that's what she wanted for me. But on the other hand, I feel kind of bad for her. Because she's living the life that I dread. I mean, of course, she has an easy way out. My father-in-law has told her that she can just apologize to me for everything. And he will hire the housekeeper again. But she refuses to do so. And says that she's ready to do whatever it takes to prove that she's right. Because she knows that she is. And she thinks it's good that she is being forced to go back to the kind of life that she used to have when my husband was younger. Because it's keeping her honest and preventing her from becoming lazy. Like the women of our generation. So you see, I'm kind of conflicted about whether I did the right thing or not. Since on one hand, I really don't think that whatever she thinks and believes about women is healthy. But on the other, I don't really think that this is the right way to go about it either. Especially because she is in her late 50s and has severe back problems. So this can't be good for her health either. But she just refuses to apologize to me and be done with it. It's just a very weird situation that we are in right now. And I feel kind of guilty, but my husband keeps telling me not to. And yet I can't help it. So I ate for telling my father-in-law to keep his wife in check. After she told me that I should divorce her son. Because he was having to cook for himself? Edit. So first things first, my husband also does not agree with the kind of opinions that my mother-in-law has. And he has tried to change it several times. But as you guys already know, she's very stubborn. And refuses to listen to anybody else who doesn't have the same beliefs as she does. And it's very exhausting to keep fighting with somebody close to you. Over the same things again and again. So my husband decided to stop talking to her about these things after a while. He still had to maintain a relationship with his mother. Because otherwise, she would just keep guilt-tripping him. And he didn't want that. And after he started dating me, he knew that she would not approve of the kind of person that I am. Because I'm quite outspoken and strong-headed. And she would want somebody a little softer for her son. But he had made it very clear to her before he even introduced me to his family. He did not want her speaking to me about any of her skewed opinions. And if she did, then he would cut her off forever. Neither did he want her imposing those opinions on me after we got married. And so far, she had managed to do it. Which is why we had stayed in touch with her. Besides, we just didn't want to get into any drama. And I think that was a valid reason for us not to cut her off. I can understand most people would say that we should have cut her out of our lives. But it's not that easy. Families are not just black and white. And it's important to understand that. And a lot of people had also been questioning why exactly my father-in-law had been with his wife for so long. If he had wildly different opinions. And well, I don't know what to say to that. I guess love does crazy things to people. And even though my father-in-law had always known that she was this kind of person, he had put up with it because he loved her. Just like my mother-in-law had put up with me because she loved her son. I think it's like the same thing. But right now, both of them are getting older. And it's more difficult to put up with somebody else's BS at this age. So maybe that's why he's punishing her the way that he is. Whatever it is, I hope this answers why we hadn't cut her off. Or why my father-in-law had still chosen to stay with her for so many years. Since that's what most of you had been very confused about. Update 1. Hey, so 1 week has passed since I had that fight with my mother-in-law. And she has been living according to her own rules since then. She has refused to apologize to me. So my father-in-law refuses to go back on his word. And after reading the comments, I don't think that I did anything wrong anymore. I think that this is perfectly well deserved, and she can deal with it. Since she expects everybody else to. I had been discussing it with my husband back and forth. Ever since that incident took place. And he told me that he hadn't been on speaking terms with his mother as well after that day. Because he did not appreciate the way she had behaved with me. And even he had made it very clear to her that he was not going to speak to her unless she apologized to me. But even that had not moved her. She had said that this was the last straw. That the last thing that she ever wanted to see was her son cooking for himself in the kitchen. So now she would do whatever it took. But she would prove that she was right. And make sure that I was not a part of the family anymore, at least on her watch. Good for her, she can keep trying to prove that she's right. But it's not going to harm anybody apart from her anymore. Anyway, last evening, I finally decided to come back to my husband. Because my dad had his brother to take care of him now. And it was very difficult for me to leave him behind. But he told me that I had to go back to work and stuff. So he couldn't expect me to stay with him forever. And that was really nice of him. So I came back, and my husband was overjoyed to see me after so long. And for the first time in weeks, we discussed things in person. Eventually, we got to talking about his mother again. And he told me that she had been having a lot of trouble with her back and stuff. But even then, she refused to acknowledge that she had been wrong. And that it was unfair of her to expect me to do everything for her son. Especially since both of us were adults. And we were fine with the kind of arrangement that we had. So she had absolutely no business speaking to me about whether I should be cooking for him all the time or not. And she definitely did not have the right to tell me that I was not a good wife. And that I should divorce him. He also told me that his dad had been feeling bad about what he was putting his wife through. But he had made up his mind that he was not going to back down. Until she apologized to me. Because for years, he had put up with her outdated opinions and beliefs. But now it was getting out of hand. Initially, she would just say things about women. And that was outrageous enough. But at least she wouldn't act on anything and go out of her way to control things around her. But I guess with age, she was slowly losing the capacity to understand what was right and what was wrong. And she was just doing whatever came to her mind. And seemed right in the moment. I wouldn't call it senility, because she's just in her 50s. I don't think that's even possible. But there's definitely something off about this whole stubborn and weird behavior of hers. Because right now, she's not even willing to listen to her own husband. Which, according to her, is not the way women should behave. Anyway, my point is that I refuse to feel guilty for anything that she's going through anymore. She brought this on herself, and now she can deal with it. Update 2. So I decided to visit my father-in-law with my husband. Because we hadn't seen each other for a really long time. And it has been a couple of days since I returned. So I decided to drop by. Of course, my mother-in-law was the one who opened the door to us. And as soon as she saw me, she told me that I was not allowed to enter the house. My husband obviously lost his temper. And told her that she needed to cut it out. Because we were here to see his father and not her. She refused to even step aside and stood blocking the doorway. Until my father-in-law came along and said that it was his house. His name on the deed of the house. And so if he wanted me to come inside, then she had no right to stop me. Then she started arguing with him. And said that she had an equal role to play here. Because even though it was legally his house, she had been living here for ages. And she was a member of the family as well. And then my father-in-law told her that she herself had said that they were not on equal footing. Because she believed that women should be worshipping their husbands. And obeying everything that they said without question. And that's not what she was doing at the moment. It was then that she completely lost it and started freaking out at all of us. She grabbed a glass and smashed it to bits on the ground. And we all had to back up a little bit. Because she was raging out loud. First, she started yelling at her husband. And told him that she couldn't believe that instead of taking her side, he was siding with me. And it was incredibly wrong of him to do that. Because she only wanted the best for her son. And it was not just her son, my husband was his child as well. And he should not be so blind to his kid's misery. What misery she was referring to, I have no idea. Since my husband is pretty happy with me. Anyway, she went on yelling at my father-in-law. And told him that she was absolutely done with him. Because in spite of the fact that she had completely devoted herself to him, he still seemed to be taking my side over hers for no reason. Apparently, it was her belief that even if she was wrong, her husband should still be by her side. Because that's what a marriage means. I must say, she has a very twisted idea of what it means to be married. Then it was my husband's turn to be yelled at by his mother. Because she was completely losing it, and it was very obvious. When it came to him, she literally started screaming like a banshee. And told him that she had only wanted the best for him. But instead of being grateful for her and how much she cared for him, he had not even bothered to check up on her for the last couple of days. And was acting as if she was the villain in the situation. She told him that she regretted ever agreeing to allow him to marry me. And I could see my husband looking very, very confused. Because he had never asked for her permission. He had only ever told her not to behave badly with me, and that was it. He even tried to tell her that he had never asked for her permission. But she cut him off and told him that it didn't matter. She would have made sure that the wedding wouldn't have happened without her consent. And now she regretted letting it take place. And then, finally, it was my turn. If I'm being frank with you guys. As soon as she looked at me and screamed, "You!" I had a very strong urge to laugh in her face. Because it was so dramatic and unnecessarily villainous. Also, while she was screaming at me, she kept making really weird faces. And it was very funny. But it stopped being funny as soon as she got all up in my face. And I'm not even kidding, she was so close that I could actually smell her breath. So I just put my arm in front of me. So she would be gently forced to back up a little. But instead of backing up, she decided to retaliate at my harmless gesture and shoved me. And I guess she used all her strength to shove me. Because I fell back pretty hard and lost my balance. So I ended up on the ground. Luckily, I was not hurt too badly, but I was really angry. No matter how much she hated me, she had absolutely no right to turn to physical altercations. And even though I had been amused until that point, I started yelling back at her after she shoved me. Even my husband was quite upset. And as he was helping me up to my feet, he kept arguing with her. And she kept saying that I was apparently going to shove her. Which is why I had raised my arm to place it in between us. Even though I had just done that so she would back up a little. And I had no intention of hurting her, but she did. While she and my husband were arguing, in the heat of the moment, I ended up saying to him that it was not even worth it to speak to her. Because it was very obvious that she had been against me right from the first day. And now her true colors were just coming to the surface. Then I told him that it was a pity that she was his mother. Because even though she kept claiming that she loved him, and was doing everything out of love for him, because she wanted the best for him, it all seemed like a bunch of BS. Because everything that she did was just to prove herself right, not out of love. I guess that really ticked her off. Because as soon as I said it, she literally charged at me. And my husband had to push her back. And my father-in-law had to restrain her physically. Because she had started to kick and scream. And it was very obvious that all she wanted to do was hurt me. She kept cursing at me and was acting all hysterical. So my husband and I decided to leave. Because it was very obvious that we were not wanted here. And at the moment, that was the best thing for us to do. My father-in-law also insisted that we leave. So he could deal with the situation, and so we went away. But even after we had left, we were still very worried about what was going on. So a couple of hours later, we decided to call my father-in-law. And ask him what had happened after we left. And also make sure that he was doing fine. When we called, he picked up the phone. And he sounded a little exhausted but all right otherwise. And then he told us that after we left, he had taken his wife inside and gotten her to sit down and calm down. But even after she had stopped acting crazy, she continued to curse at me. And said that she was going to make sure that we got a divorce. How she planned on doing that, we don't know. Anyway, my father-in-law had had enough of this. And after she had calmed down, he decided to leave the room and called her brother. He told his brother-in-law everything about what was going on with him. And especially how crazy his wife is acting. So her brother came by, and even though she didn't want to go with him, she had to leave. Her brother also had a similar kind of upbringing. And initially used to be quite orthodox and regressive like her. But he has since changed, mostly because he got married. And now, even though he does not agree with the way that his sister thinks, he still decided to come to pick her up, so she could spend a few days with her brother and his wife. And I think a little bit of space right now is very necessary. My father-in-law told me that he really loves his wife. But whatever she has been doing of late, and the way she has been acting, it's not acceptable. And he cannot stand for it. So after spending a few days apart, when she finally comes back home, he's going to tell her that she needs to get help. And if she refuses, then they are going to get divorced. They have spent many years together, slightly more than 3 decades. So that's a huge deal, but I think it's for the best. For her own good, I hope she realizes that she has a problem. And she needs to get with the times. Or else nobody will be there for her anymore. Even my own husband thinks that his parents getting divorced would be the right thing to happen, in case his mother refuses to change her ways. But even then, she is still going to be given a chance to change herself. And I really hope she takes it. Update 3. Hi, so almost a month has passed since my last update. And a lot of things have changed. I guess I had mentioned that my father-in-law had sent his wife away to live with her brother and his family, so she could calm down a little and reevaluate her priorities. She came back to him after a week, and he told her that now either she could apologize to me, agree to get help, and just fix her behavior in general, or he would be forced to file for a divorce. They fought for a couple of days, but eventually, she agreed to get help. But she said that she still needed some time before she apologized to me. So she has been getting professional help. And about 5 days ago, she sent me a really long email to apologize to me as well. It's not as if my husband and I haven't seen her in the recent past before that apology. We see her around every time that we visit my father-in-law. But we had stopped acknowledging each other's existence. However, after the apology that she sent, when my husband and I went over for dinner to my FIL's house, she did say that she was very sorry about everything to us in person as well. And that's a start. I don't know if it will get better or not, but it's still a start. Anyway, my husband and I are going strong together. And even my father has started doing better. He has taken up a bunch of new hobbies to keep himself occupied. And my husband and I are planning on visiting him in a couple of days as well. So things are well at the moment, and I hope they get better.